Hi, it's Anika from Living for Later, and I just wanted to share with you, since it's the last day of 2019, some of the lessons that I've really learned this year. And I was sitting here reflecting after my quiet time with the Lord on just how much He has taught me this year. So let me just jump right into it. So I have lost approximately 20 pounds this year, and it's all connected because I feel like I dropped another kind of weight too. It wasn't just off of my body, but just old mindsets and just different things, right? And I was just really reflecting like, Lord, I feel like this year was a year of stretching, a year of growing, and a year of just great revelation. And when I say to you that I felt like God just went deep and just like pulled up some stuff and revealed some things to me, and it was painful. Some of it was painful. The process was painful, but oh my goodness, so absolutely worth it. So let me just jump right in and talk about this with you. So the way I lost the weight physically was through what many would consider a very extreme method. And I agree, it is pretty extreme. But I decided to go this route because it's something that I was very prayerful about, and I feel like this is how God was leading me, which I have to say was very difficult in the beginning. And that was one of the lessons that I learned. Like, I can't run away from the hard. And I am notorious for starting something, and when things get difficult and I know that God has called me to it, it's easy for me to make up a lot of excuses and just say, you know what, this is just too difficult, whatever, I'm done. All right, let me go on and try something else, or let me do something else. But I knew that I had to stick with many things that God called me to do this year, and they were difficult things. And I have shared on this channel that I was able to publish 2 books, and while that sounds so impressive, I have to say that I didn't just sit down and start writing these books this year. I've been writing really for years, especially the prayer one. And it was just this year that I just, felt like enough. I'm done with the excuses on why I can't finish and whatever. And I just felt like the Lord was saying to focus. And I have to tell you, there were many times that I had my laptop and I ran into different roadblocks, whether it was technical difficulties or me just not knowing how to do certain things and organize certain things. And there were times where I would literally be at my laptop in tears, just absolutely crying. But I knew that it was more than just about me finishing the books. I know that God was trying to teach me to complete a task and to not run away from things when they get difficult, and to not make excuses. So this was such a huge accomplishment for me when I was able to hit publish, right? And after they were published, did I see some mistakes? Absolutely. But you know what? That's okay. For me, it was, Lord, I felt like I gave it my all, and I didn't run away when it was difficult. I stuck with it, and it blessed me in so many ways, because I feel like my ability to just really say, okay, God, I'm going to focus. I'm not going to run away from the hard with these books. And even with my dietary changes, it didn't stop there. It spilled over into other areas of my life. And I saw God show up in such awesome ways by sending help. My willingness to stay on task and to do what I knew He was calling me to do, He rewarded my efforts by sending individuals along to help me with editing and to help me with formatting and things that I didn't know how to do. So I'm just really blessed, because I know that this lesson is going to be beneficial as I move forward, even into 2020. So I just want to say to you, don't run away from the hard. The other lesson that God taught me was to just, and this has been a lesson that He has been trying to teach me forever, and it's one that I have to constantly come back to, right? And it's just this idea of understanding what true success really looks like. So I wrote the books, I published it. I didn't sell hundreds of copies, right? You notice I didn't say millions. I didn't even sell hundreds of copies, but some people did purchase the book, and for that I am grateful. And I didn't look at it as a flop because God helped me to see that those that read it were tremendously blessed, and I was just really overwhelmed with gratitude when different ones sent emails or sent texts after reading the book saying, hey, this is exactly what I needed. And I'm not just saying this, like, it blessed me so much because it was such a confirmation to know that, okay, God, I did what you called me to do. And though I may not have made it to the New York Times, whatever, bestsellers list, that's okay. These books were a success. Number one, because I obeyed, right? That's the first point of success. When I obey, that's success all the time. And number two is those who received it were blessed by it. So again, a lesson that I'm constantly having to revisit. The other thing that I've learned this year is to not despise seasons of obscurity, and to understand that God is doing some serious character development. And I got glimpses this year of God just expanding me and giving me opportunities to speak beyond my local church. And I see how the seasons of obscurity or my seasons of silence, how it paid off in such great ways, because when invitations were extended, I was able to just really understand at a great level that, God, this is not about me performing. This is about me moving forward in what you have called me to. And I really realized that God had to do some deep things in me, in my character, and help me to understand that it's not about the applause of man, but it's about me just really submitting to His will and being faithful to hear what He's saying and speaking what He's saying without being afraid of people's faces. And I have to say that if I didn't have those seasons, extended seasons of silence, that I could have flopped. I could have totally missed it. And believe me, there's more character development that God has to do in me. But this year I was able to see that, okay, God, I rejoice in what you're doing in my spirit, and how deep you're going, and the things that you are showing me in the process. And I have to say that I am learning more and more to value character over the gifts, right? It's, praise God for the ability to flow in a gift, but there's something to be said when you allow the Lord to develop character. I am so determined to get to the end of my life and to hear well done, instead of God saying, depart from me, I never knew you, and me trying to say, but God, I did this in your name, I taught in your name, I prophesied in your name. And this year, just really understanding, Anika, allow the Lord to continue to develop a godly character in you, and at the right time He will open the doors that He has for you. So character can take you where gifts can't, because, or I should say, keep you in a place where gifts cannot. So I'm just really, I hope this all makes sense, but I'm just really grateful for the character development, and some of it was painful, right, over the years, but I'm just really grateful for the character development. Another area that God has really stretched me in this year is the area of transparency. And I feel like this has been a continuous lesson that God is trying to teach me, but this year I feel like it was even more pronounced. Like, I understand that transparency really brings a greater level of freedom, and it takes the spotlight off of you and put it on God. And it really is freeing, because for so long, as I've shared before, I've lived with this mindset that I have to present a perfect image. And this year I went at an even greater level in just being transparent and sharing my areas of struggle, sharing past issues that we had in our marriage. And I realized that as I become more transparent, it takes the spotlight off of me and it puts it on God, which is the point of my existence, right? It's to bring glory to God. And it really is very, very freeing when you're like, wait a minute, I don't have to pretend like I have it all together. It's just kind of like, and I don't want to say this in an arrogant way, but I'm getting closer and closer to this mindset of, I don't care what you think about me. Now, let me say, I do still have moments where I kind of slip into that, but it's like conviction comes right away, and the Lord is like, no, we're not slipping back into these old mindsets. So I still have my moments, don't get me wrong, but I find that the more I become transparent, the more I'm just like, well, I'm not perfect anyway, so whatever, you're gonna think what you think about me. And my transparency is not just, oh, let me just share with you my brokenness and it is what it is. It's when I share with you my areas of brokenness and my areas of struggle, I want you to see that God is able to take somebody like me who have these areas of struggle, and when you submit to him, he brings you through this process of beautifying you and purifying you and bringing you to where he wants you to be. So it just enhances the testimony even more, because I was good for telling you point A and then jumping all the way to point Z and never really share the in between. And the Lord is really showed me this year at a greater level, share the in between, right? Share the in between with people, because when they see the in between and we get to this place of wholeness, they're able to see that it was me that did this work in you. And it's so easy, again, for us to want to take the glory. So because of that, we don't want to be transparent with people. So I hope it all makes sense. But again, it's just brought such a great level of freedom for me this year, just my willingness to be transparent. So this year I've been going around trying to sound fancy, and I'm telling people, oh, I feel like I'm just going through such a season of deconstruction, right? And really, it's funny I say that, but I do feel like there's a level of truth to that. There's a great level of truth. I feel like this year God challenged me in so many areas of my thinking, and it was hard sometimes to release probably old mindsets and things that I thought to be true, and that this is the way God operates. I think that this year he allowed me to see that he's so much bigger than my context. He's so much bigger than the way I perceive him to be or the way I was taught. And it's just really been amazing. And it was difficult for me at first, because sometimes when you hold on to certain beliefs for such a long time and you become challenged in those beliefs, it can really be difficult, because you're like, okay, well, if I release this way of thinking and embrace what God is saying, how does this impact other areas of my life? What does it say about this area? What does it say about this area? And this year I had to really spend a lot of time in prayer and allow the Lord to break down old mindsets that really were rooted in tradition and not necessarily his word. And some of those mindsets were things that I kind of took on myself because it just made sense, and it created, I guess, a sense of safety. I don't know if all of this makes sense, but this year I feel like God was doing a great deconstruction in my spirit. And I'm not talking about me drifting off into error and, just embracing whatever. It was more Him bringing me back to His word and saying, okay, I know that this is what you think, or this is the way you've interpreted it, but let me really reveal this to you by my spirit. And me being humble enough to say, okay, God, I'm gonna allow you to teach me. And that teaching didn't just come from my personal Bible study, but by just different individuals that God put in my path, who just really challenged certain areas of thinking, whether or not they realized it. So it's been uncomfortable, but a good uncomfortable, because I'm just seeing God in a greater way. And I suspect that this is something that's going to continue to happen. And, I made a video a few weeks ago, and that's just the truth. We don't know it all, and that there's always something new to learn. And, again, I don't want to make it seem like, okay, I've just abandoned, the foundational truths of the faith, and I'm embracing just whatever. That's not what I'm saying. It's just certain traditional mindsets that God really has challenged me in, and I'm just having a different understanding now, and it's been just it's been a good thing. All right, the final thing, which is pretty obvious, but I saw it even greater this year, is that time with God is absolutely imperative. Like, I cannot tell you how many times I have sat in the presence of God, and after I am done, I'm just like, God, I thank you for the ability to speak with you, because there were times this year where I was just so overwhelmed with just different things that were coming at me, and just different things that I felt like He was calling me to do, and I needed clarity. And I just realized I don't have this figured out, and I don't know what to do. And just coming and sitting in His presence and just really walking away, just saying, God, I thank you. I thank you for clarity. I thank you for revelation. Because listen, I can work myself up into a nice ball of confusion real quick, real quick, right? But it's just always so nice to just come back and sit in the presence of the Lord and have Him just help me to just decipher and to work through just the cobwebs, and to have Him direct my path. And I just really realized that I'm not that smart. I really am not. And I'm not saying this from a false humility standpoint. Like, for real, I don't know it all, and I don't always know which direction to go. I may have the big picture in mind, but the day to day of what it should look like, I realize I don't have that figured out. And just the privilege of being able to come and just sit in the presence of God and have Him lead and guide me is just, this year, it was just so pronounced to me. So that is it. As I go into 2020, I plan to take these lessons with me, and I know that God is going to build on these things. But I am just so excited. I'm so excited for what's ahead. I know that it's not always going to be bright and sunny days. I'm not naive to think that. I do know that 2020, while I'm believing the Lord to do some great things, that there will be a mixture of some difficulties, right? But I'm realizing now I embrace that, even because I realize that even in that, God brings growth, and that He causes all things to work together for my good. So I'm not shying away from the difficult, and I'm also looking forward to the good. And I know that, God just has some great things in store, and I know that my desire is just to please Him and to be in step with what He is saying. So we shall see what is ahead for 2020. Would love to hear from you. What is perhaps the most pronounced lesson that God has taught you this year? Would love to hear from you. And what are you looking forward to the most for 2020? All right, you be blessed.